I'm Jeff Hunt. He's Bill Thorpe. Is fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction?
We get that on a t-shirt. I think there's a business opportunity there.
This is fascinating because we just had KBB on, Christy Burton Brown, to talk about how we're going to make possession of fentanyl, any amount of fentanyl, now a felony. Donald Trump coming out with an executive order yesterday designating fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction. I feel like I should have a bell here. Ring, 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 ring. Hear ye, by the authority vested in me as president, by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered that illicit fentanyl is closer to a chemical weapon than a narcotic. 2 milligrams. An almost undetectable trace amount equivalent to 10 to 15 grains of table salt constitutes a lethal dose. Hundreds of thousands of Americans have died from fentanyl overdoses. The manufacture and distribution of fentanyl, primarily performed by organized criminal networks, threatens our national security, fuels lawlessness in our hemisphere and at our borders. The production and sale of fentanyl by foreign terrorist organizations and cartels fund these entities' operations, which includes assassinations, terrorist acts, and insurgencies around the world, and allows these entities to erode our domestic security and well-being of our nation. As President of the United States, my highest duty is the defense of our country and its citizens. Accordingly, I hereby designate illicit fentanyl and its core precursor chemicals as weapons of mass destruction. At the same time, he's looking to reschedule marijuana, which would loosen some of the regulations on it. What's going on? We're going to talk with Luke Neferotis of Smart Approaches to Marijuana coming up here in just a second, but now is time for the news.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning, Tuesday, 46 and cloudy in Denver. Expecting a high of 65 today. News sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story: classes are canceled today in Elbert County while police search for 2 middle school girls who disappeared from a basketball game last night. Administrators say the girls are members of the Colorado Springs School basketball team and were last seen leaving Elbert School at 5 o'clock. That's south and southeast of Elizabeth. Yep. They both had backpacks and were wearing blue shorts and hoodies. Elbert School on Main Street is serving as the incident command post today for search and rescue efforts. We have got to find these girls, pray that they are safe.
I'm looking at the map. I haven't spent a lot of time out that far. I mean, this is out there. There's not a lot in Elbert. You basically got one bar and grill. You got one cafe, which also is a soap shop, a few churches, and a few homes. It's basically like 5 blocks, maybe 7 blocks.
Oh, yeah.
And
absolutely.
The one thing that piques my interest, looking at Google Maps here, is across the street from Elbert High School is a gas station. That's where I would be looking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And I'm a little intrigued as to why there wouldn't be an Amber Alert.
That was my question.
They went to the gas station. I'm sure they had to pull some video from the gas station. If the girls,
you'd think,
went to that gas station across the street there and something happened to them, and that's confusing too. Like 2 girls, right? It's not one girl kind of kidnapped. 2 are now missing. And I mean, but this gas station, its pump. This is how small town this is. Its pumps require you to go inside and pay. It doesn't have the credit card thing on it. So this is a small rural community. That's the only thing out there is that one gas station in a tiny town that maybe is 7 blocks long. That's it.
Correct. Oh, man. So frightening.
Now, let me see. North Elbert Road. Yeah, you could get away pretty quickly if something happened on that road. I mean, you'd be out there.
Yep.
Yikes. All right. Well, pray.
Just
pray and look for these little girls.
Anything, anyone, wherever you are. You just never know. Man, I hope they are safe and sound somewhere. L.A. police say Nick Reiner murdered his father, Rob Reiner, and his mother, Michelle, with a knife at their home on Sunday. He makes his first court appearance today. Rob Reiner talked openly about his son's struggles with drugs and mental illness and homelessness. Manhunt is still on for the suspect in the shooting at Brown University in Rhode Island that left 2 people dead. Over a half dozen were also injured. Videos released Monday show the suspect in dark clothing walking down streets near the university. Here's a friend of one of the victims named Ella Cook.
Ella was the type of person that, regardless of if you've never met her before, she was just such a bright light. She was extremely welcoming, and it's just such a devastating loss. I can't believe that she's not with us anymore.
Got to find that guy also. He is armed and dangerous. Xcel Energy says it's considering a power shutdown for a large swath of the Front Range because strong winds are in the forecast for Wednesday. Xcel's Andrew Holder.
The area where we are going to see extreme wildfire risk environment, which includes the high wind event, additionally to that with relatively low humidity, and also where the vegetation or the fuel moisture index next to our assets are in a drier condition.
Xcel says it sent warning notifications to customers living inside the areas where it is possible power could be turned off, saying a shutoff is likely from noon to 6 o'clock tomorrow night. The utility says this option is the last resort to protect people from wildfires. Denver City Council is pushing back a vote on a new professional women's soccer stadium at Santa Fe Yards. The council took public comments on the Denver Summit Stadium proposal on Monday while delaying a vote until next week. Former comedian Jimmy Kimmel had former First Lady Michelle Obama on his show last night. They showed a picture of her favorite baseball player when she was a kid. I remember this guy.
This is Jose Cardinal, first baseman for the Chicago Cubs. I have the biggest crush on him. So the flip side of my personality was go-go boots, but I had a big brother, so I was also a tomboy because I had to keep up. What he learned to do, I learned to do, and I love to play baseball. So I like to, in the summers, get my little afro, put on a cap, pick it out like Jose Cardinal, go to bat. He was my hero.
So she got to meet him at the White House. But I got to tell you, Jose Cardinal's photo, if you put a fro on her husband and put a Cubs hat on him, they would look very, very similar. It's pretty interesting.
You're saying she's got a type, huh?
Yeah, I think so. She has a type. I think so. And she was a tomboy growing up. All right, Monday Night Football last night. Steelers lead the AFC North 28-15 victory over the Dolphins. Aaron Rodgers threw for more than 220 yards, 2 touchdowns. Steelers haven't lost a Monday Night Football game at home since the mid-90s, early 90s, actually. Rockets at the Nuggets, and the Nuggets win 128-125 in OT. Nikola Jokic, 39 points, 15 boards, 10 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks.
They're a really talented team, you know. They have a lot of weapons. They are really good in defense. They're big and tall. They attack the offensive glass. So, I mean, they're a really good team, and we tried to defend the home court because we lost, I think, 4 in a row. So it was a really good game for us.
Always humble. Avs at Seattle tonight, 43 in Lafayette, 44 in Englewood, 46 in Denver. You're waking up with Jeff and Billy. Blake Olson, News Talk, 710 KNUS.
Continued unseasonably mild. We're going to be warm, but we're also going to be getting quite breezy. Winds are going to be picking up, especially later today and tonight. Quite windy along the Front Range on Wednesday, as strong jet stream winds and a Pacific cold front will cross the Continental Divide. We'll be mid-60s today and tomorrow, 30s and low 40s tonight. Now for overnight Wednesday into Thursday morning, slight chance of a shower. Colder Wednesday night, a low near 30. Colder Thursday, highs upper 40s. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
This is All Alone on Christmas, Darlene Love. This is a weird one.
Man, that saxophone hit.
Yeah. And you know why? Who wrote the song?
Who did?
Little Steven Van Zandt of Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so some of them are backing him here. Yeah. And this is Darlene Love doing the song. This was actually written for the Home Alone 2 soundtrack. Very weird. Very weird creation as far as a holiday carol. That it was written for the movie at a time. There were other carols that were written for movies earlier on, but this would be considered more modern. And the fact that it appears first in the Home Alone 2.
Great
but the coolest thing is,
movies.
cool thing is though, little Steven Van Zandt is the author of this tune. I think that's the coolest thing about the song.
Very cool. Well, we're trying to figure out what the Trump administration's doing here. I've gotten whispers, and maybe it's out. I don't know. But I'm going to get some reaction here from one of the best out there. Trump possibly weighing reclassifying marijuana? Yesterday, he labels fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction, which I agree with him on. It is. It's killed 100,000. But tobacco, for instance, kills 400,000 each year. That's why I think prohibition does work, because when you prohibit things, you get less of it. Yes, you have a black market, but fentanyl, which can kill you with one dose, kills 100,000. Tobacco, which takes a lifetime, kills 4 times more people each year. So I'm trying to understand what he's doing with the reclassification of marijuana. And the best out there is Smart Approaches to Marijuana. Luke Niforatis joining us now. Good morning, Luke. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Jeff and Bill. Great to see you. Thanks for having me on again. Appreciate it.
I know you're very busy. You were with Steve Bannon. You're all over on big major media outlets. It's an honor to have you with us. What is Trump considering here, and why is this a bad idea?
Yeah, so let's just, to give you the background, what Trump is looking at right now is to reschedule marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 in the federal drug scheduling system. And it's very bizarre because what we're looking at is a rule that President Biden promised during the 2020 campaign. This is a Biden campaign promise. After Biden took office, Biden worked with Rachel Levine to prepare this rule to reschedule marijuana to Schedule 3. It was a very wacky process. Some would say a very deep state process. They rigged a bunch of rules, changed things that hadn't been changed in decades in order to make marijuana qualify for Schedule 3. And then they did everything to prepare this rule up to the final point. And really all that's left is for President Trump to sign his name to it, which is really confounding. Why would Trump want to sign his name to something like this, a Biden holdover ruling? Doesn't make any sense. But it's a very bad idea.
It doesn't make sense in part because of who Donald Trump is. I mean, he's a teetotaler. He doesn't drink alcohol. He understands, watching what happened to his brother, what this does to somebody that consumes it. He gets what addiction and drug consumption does to people. And so it strikes me as weird. But I guess, Luke Niforatis, help us understand what rescheduling the drug would do.
Yes. So what we think is the reason why he's doing it is because he's being sold by the industry, by these major mega pot CEOs who, by the way, they're making millions of dollars off of addicting kids nationwide with their new high potency products. It's ridiculous. But they've told Trump this doesn't legalize it. It just kind of, makes it more medical, and it doesn't really do anything. Well, what rescheduling actually does is it gives a $2+ billion tax break to the marijuana industry, which, by the way, is still federally illegal. So it's rewarding these people for A, selling addictive and harmful products, B, continuing to participate in a behavior that is federally illegal, giving them a giant tax break. That's what this does, first and foremost. The second thing it does is it sends this message that marijuana is somehow less harmful at a time when particularly we in Colorado know that marijuana is more harmful than it's ever been. We saw potency go from on average 5% THC just a few decades ago to 99% potency products now that are being sold in Colorado that are leading to people like my former neighbor who now lives in Castle Rock, Laura Stack. Her son got marijuana psychosis from one of these new marijuana dabs and jumped to his death off the Lincoln parking garage. Okay, it is hurting and devastating families in Colorado as well as families across the country. So no, it's not less harmful. It is much more harmful. It makes no sense why rescheduling would be happening right now, but it does make sense in the terms of what the industry wants, because what they want is federal recognition. They want this tax break to write off their business expenses, and that's what rescheduling would bring about.
We're dealing with marijuana commercialization here. That's the end point. That's what it's all about. And the primary drivers of this are the tobacco companies. They've all changed their names. They're no longer like Philip Morris, although I think that might be out there. But Marlboro, I think they're all like Altria right now, or some innocuous sounding corporate consulting name that's out there. But they're pushing this. But look, anytime you push this online, you end up with the critique that, well, gosh, it's Schedule I drugs are like heroin, and clearly marijuana is not like heroin. So what's your response to that critique?
Yeah, so that just comes with a fundamental misunderstanding of scheduling. So the way the scheduling system works very simply is there's two factors that decide what part of the schedule a drug goes on. It's 1 is the most restrictive, 5 is the least restrictive. And the two factors that decide that is 1, the potential for abuse. So addiction, harms to your brain, harms to your body, things like that go into that description. And then 2 is the accepted medical use. And that is defined through what the FDA has determined to be medicine. I mean, the FDA is how we do medicine in this country. I don't think we want to vote on our medicines. I couldn't be entrusted, I don't think, to vote on the latest pharmaceutical drugs. So I think having the FDA makes sense. And so those are the two criteria. And so marijuana has a high potential for abuse. It's got a long documented history with more than 50,000 research studies that show the various harms and abuse potential that this drug has. And all of that's gotten worse, as I alluded to, since states started commercializing the drug. And secondarily, marijuana is not medicine, not the whole plant. The FDA has approved a few marijuana-based medications. There are components of the marijuana plant that actually do have medical value that have already been approved. You can get prescriptions from your doctor. And so that, I think, is the proper process. But the entire plant of marijuana is never going to be a medicine. We are never going to smoke a FDA-approved medicine. That's just not how it works. It's very harmful to your body, to your lungs. So that is why marijuana belongs in Schedule I. It's got a high potential for abuse, and you can't smoke it for medicine. That's where it goes. That happens to coincide with heroin, which people think, well, how could those two be the same? It's not based on which one's more harmful. It's based on those two criteria that I talked about. That's why we have other psychedelic drugs that are also in Schedule I. When you start moving these drugs down the schedule, or you start removing them from the schedule, then you're entrusting these companies with your health, with our well-being as a society. And I'm not super interested in doing that. Look at big tobacco. Look at Purdue Pharma. Look at what we're now seeing with these marijuana companies, where they have an addiction for profit incentive. They make money when people use their product many, many times a day. They have no incentive to stop that. In fact, interestingly enough, Jeff, I don't know if you saw this data that just came out, but in Colorado, more than half of all marijuana users in Colorado use marijuana every single day. So we have mass addiction that's happening in our state, where the people who choose to use it are using it much more. And by the way, that's much higher than the alcohol user rate of use in Colorado. Alcohol users use it much less amount. They're not using it every single day. That's a much lower number. So people who use marijuana, they're using it very heavily in our state, and that is when it's most harmful. That's when we see the research show the real health harms, which I can get into if you guys want to.
Well, I think Colorado is a good example of how it just didn't work, right? Like, we've been doing this now for 12 years? And all these promises, remember all the promises that, goodness, if people have access to marijuana, they won't drink as much. Well, we're the number one state in America for alcohol consumption. So that hasn't gone away. We have record fentanyl busts taking place because you remember they said, well, then the cartels are not going to be operating in Colorado if we get everything they promised was a lie. All they got was a bigger industry, more access to the market, more money, and the ability to addict your kids with higher potency crap. That's all that happened in the last 12 years in Colorado. It has not worked out. It has not been a net good for Colorado. In fact, it's been worse, and plenty of studies have shown that. We're talking to Luke Niferata, Smart Approaches to Marijuana. So if Trump is thinking of rescheduling this drug, and there's no real medical benefit to it, there's no reason to adjust the schedule, some people are speculating this is some weird kind of last-ditch political effort to get some votes out there. I'm sorry, but the idea that someone sitting on the sideline is going, I don't like Trump, but, oh, wait, he's going to reschedule pot? Now he's my guy, is bizarre to me. But is there an element that there's some type of political posturing in a midterm election around this decision?
Yeah, look, there may be discussion around marijuana as medicine, but I can guarantee you marijuana is not a cure for Trump derangement syndrome. Okay, so if that's what he's thinking, it's definitely not going to work for that. But no, there is definitely a midterms play here. Sorry, Jeff, I had to go there. But no, there is definitely a midterms play here. They definitely think that, I don't think Trump, like you said, Trump's an anti-drug guy. I don't think he has any interest in marijuana being more available. I think this is something he has been promised is going to bring out voters in some way. But the idea that you have stoners who are on the couch and they're going to put down the bag of Cheetos and go out and vote for Trump because he rescheduled it to Schedule 3, which 95% of Americans, they don't even know what that means. They don't even know what rescheduling is actually going to do. For all intents and purposes, it's going to remain illegal at the federal level. So what is that even going to change in their daily life other than line the pockets of these business tycoons? That is not going to be a mover for him in the midterms. It just doesn't make sense. And I will say, Jeff, just yesterday, Trump said, they're looking at rescheduling. He made his first kind of really strong remarks about it. And the number one reason Trump gave is he said, we'll be able to do more research on marijuana. And again, this comes with a fundamental misunderstanding of the current status of things. We have more than 50,000 research studies on marijuana right now. We know everything we need to know about marijuana. The idea that because a drug is Schedule 1, we can't research it. I mean, are you telling me we don't think we know enough about cocaine or heroin? Those are drugs. Cocaine, I think, is Schedule 2 now, but heroin, Schedule 1. So a lot of psychedelic drugs are Schedule 1. We know a lot about these substances. LSD, we have a lot of research on these substances. So the idea that we need to move it to Schedule 3 to research it is a total misnomer. And also, on our website, learnaboutsam.org, again, my organization, Smart Approaches to Marijuana, you go to our website, go to rescheduling. We have a table where we do side-by-side, Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. What are the changes for research availability? And you'll see there's no change. It is not going to be any easier to research it at Schedule 3 than Schedule 1. So the research misnomer needs to be, it's a myth. It needs to be debunked. It's not going to help. But, definitely I think midterms are at play here. And I just think they're going to be extremely disappointed if they expect a whole bunch of voters to come out and vote because he did a weird federal thing that really only benefited the marijuana industry.
Yeah, I mean, some people are texting, though, that it did get people out to vote for Obama in 12, but I don't know. It just seems like a different voter base.
There's no evidence of that.
Really?
There was no.
Really?
So that,
all right,
that was,
tell me about that because I was here in 12 and it felt like
I think
it got a lot of people out.
That may not be there nationally, but the Colorado might disprove that.
So what we saw with that election specifically was, yes, there was a lot of anecdotal discussion around that, but there was never any evidence that that was a driver of voters to the polls. When Gallup did their look at what were the top 20 reasons why voters came out, marijuana was not on it for those voters. I would need to see data to prove that. I've heard it anecdotally, but everybody makes that claim in different states, and we have yet to see that borne out. People come out to vote for very big moving reasons, their jobs, the economy, really stuff that, gets at their convictions or things that are really bothering them. And yes, if you ask people, do you care about marijuana? People probably have a pretty strong opinion about it if you ask them, but that's not something they're actively thinking about, at least what the research has shown us, and saying, I'm going to go out and vote based on my views on marijuana. We just haven't seen the marijuana vote happen yet. As much as our governor, Jared Polis, would like us to think that there is, he in his last election, for the first time ever, had that director of cannabis voter initiatives. But I just haven't seen a real benefit derived from that yet at this point anywhere in the country.
Well, I would encourage President Trump not to do this. I am a big opponent to commercialized marijuana. I watched it destroy the lives of the people I love. I think there's a bizarre anger issue that develops when people smoke marijuana. I've seen that personally in my own relationships. People have very short fuses. They tend to get very angry when they're regularly using marijuana. I don't see it at all helping people advance in life. You see some comments on social media around the idea that it helps with my wife's pain or stuff like that. And clearly opioids are a problem with that. But I just think it makes you dumber. I used marijuana when I was in middle school, and there's a direct correlation with my grades dropping, in part because it zapped my short-term memory. For at least 24 hours, I would smoke marijuana and then try to read, and I couldn't remember the paragraph I had just finished. So my grades plummeted. It broke relationships with me and my parents. I've watched it lead to people using heavier drugs. Now, not everybody who uses marijuana goes on to heavier drugs, but pretty much everybody who uses heavier drugs started with marijuana. So it led in that capacity. And then you get the whole commercialized side of this. And Luke, you bring up a really great point about what Purdue Pharma did. My goodness, if you want to go read a book about how insidious corporatized drugs can be with regards to addiction, it's horrific what they did with opioids and how they got people addicted to it. And we're just opening up our society to this. And so while I applaud what Trump has done with the DEA, and we've had them in studio, and I love it. I mean, the DEA guys are coming to us saying, we're finally empowered to fight what this addiction is doing to our neighbors and our community, and we're going after the cartels, and man, we're empowered to do it. At the same time, they're like, oh, we're going to reschedule marijuana and just open up, corporate greed to that whole addiction drug as well. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Luke, we'll finish with this. What's your message to the president on this?
Yeah, my message to the president is stick with your convictions about drugs. Don't reschedule marijuana. It is going to undermine everything you're doing to try to reignite a smart war on drugs, to stop the cartels. This is a giveaway to the cartels. It's a giveaway to people who are hurting our kids, who are hurting our families. And we see that no more clearly than we see it right here in Colorado, where this is a state where our families have been devastated by this, where our young men are having their futures diminished and even in cases ruined because of this drug. This is not what we need for the next generation of families and kids. Reject this call.
Great work. Luke Neferata, Smart Approaches to Marijuana. Luke, how can people be involved with your organization?
Yeah, check us out on learnaboutsam.org. That's got all the information you could ever need. And Jeff, I wanted to leave you with one little tidbit. You were talking about Purdue Pharma. Not many people know this. The addiction rate for people prescribed OxyContin when we had the opioid crisis was about 7 to 10%. That's what the research said. There was a recent study that just came out a couple weeks ago. The addiction rate for people given medical marijuana cards, 30%. Higher level of addiction to supposedly medical marijuana than the addiction rate to OxyContin. There's something going on with this drug right now. We got to have full alert.
I appreciate it. And how was Steve Bannon, by the way? Did you finish the interview with him? And what was his response?
Yeah, well, he rescheduled me to tomorrow, but I did him over the weekend. I was on his show over the weekend, and he was great. He's furious about this. He does not want Trump to reschedule marijuana. The base on that side of things is rabid right now. I've gotten literally thousands of people have reached out to me since doing that hit. I can't even believe the level of engagement with his audience. But they're calling, they're phoning into Trump right now. We're getting a lot of inbound off of that, and I'll be on again tomorrow.
We just got to be going the other direction. I do not think this drug is good for our communities, and we need less of it, not more of it. Luke Neferata, sure appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, guys. As always, you do great work. You're a huge, huge big boon to Colorado and everything that we need for sanity. So God bless you both.
Hopefully we'll turn it around. Thank you, Luke Neferotis. All right, breaking news. Elbert County Office of Emergency Management reporting that the 2 girls that went missing yesterday after the basketball game have been found safe.
That's fantastic. That is wonderful. Now,
praise God,
big question.
From whom all blessings flow.
What the hell happened?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, big question.
Were they
were
just
they overnight?
Were they just middle school girls being middle school girls?
Yeah.
And running off and
yeah, just the idea of and
or was there something more nefarious?
Yeah, and there are probably a lot of people in the audience, and I'd put myself into this, have been involved or in some sort of a school or team activity where people just spin off, almost like, atoms sometimes throw off electrons, where it's just like, they go off and they're doing whatever it is. Sometimes it's nefarious. Sometimes they just get distracted. Sometimes they're like, I don't want to be with the group anymore. I mean, we've seen that a lot, and this is not the same thing, but like when you'd go to school and you'd have a school trip, and it's like, hey, stay in your group as we go around the zoo or you go around in the museum, and some people just spin out and try to get away from that small group as often as possible. I'm wondering if that was part of the motivation, or was there something more nefarious involved? But the biggest question is, where were they overnight?
Yes.
That's a big question right now.
30 searchers working through the night using K9 units and drones to search the area. Authorities said dropping temperatures added urgency to the effort. But the good news is they are alive and they are, quote, found safe.
Yeah, because based on the temperatures and the clothes that they weren't
couldn't
wearing,
have been outside.
Yeah, you shouldn't and couldn't have been and shouldn't have been. And if you were outside at that point in which they're searching late at night, when the temperatures were dropping to 30s and below, that's the time in which you start raising your hand and yelling, "Hey, I'd like to go home to my warm bed."
Yeah.
So where were they? Yeah.
We'll give you all the latest as this breaking news develops. In the meantime, let's talk advanced hair restoration. If you're losing your hair, you need a simple solution that works. You want the best. Modern technology, top-rated physicians, something that's guaranteed to work. Guys, you need Dr. Tanya Pauls and her team at Advanced Hair. They've completely redefined hair restoration from the experience itself to their unmatched results. You got a receding hairline, bald spot, or thinning hair. Address them all with Advanced Hair's simple one-day treatment in a calm, relaxed environment with the most experienced professionals. Advanced Hair has performed tens of thousands of these breakthrough treatments. And get this, your own natural hair begins to regrow the very next day. No one in Denver can offer anything like Advanced FUE found at Advanced Hair, and I highly recommend their team. Look, guys, my family, I've had multiple family members lose their hair when they were 18, go almost completely bald. Hair transplants revolutionized their lives by giving them a youthfulness. It brought that back, which improved romantic relationships, work relationships, everything. It brings back an energy that's really important. It all starts with your free consultation. Give them a call, 720-459-HAIR, 720-459-HAIR. If you qualify, you'll get $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Refine your hairline with the team that's redefined hair restoration, 720-459-HAIR. Or advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. Do you support Donald Trump rescheduling marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3? Will that open up more research in your mind? Or is this just a big play by Big Tobacco to be able to commercialize another drug and make money off addicting our kids? You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710, KNUS. Ooh. This is cool. This is the original version of this. You don't get this a lot. This is the Moon Glows going, "Hey Santa Claus." Most people be familiar with the Wilson sisters, their version of "Hey Santa" that was on their album. But this is the original that was recorded early 50s, I think. What I love about this song more than anything else is the group is in part credit to legendary DJ Alan Freed. He helped them change their name and kind of tighten their sound. They had done some other songs before this. This is mostly a skipped over song. The only place that most of the audience will have run into it is in the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. It appears for just a snippet inside of that movie where people are playing it on the street as Clark Griswold is wandering around. But that's the only time you'd probably normally hear it. This is a very unusual, very deep cut. Love this one.
Nice.
Yeah,
there you
it's
go.
cool.
Thank you, Mr. Thorpe. All right, we're talking Trump considering rescheduling marijuana. What is that going to mean? I think it's a terrible idea. On the same day he was declaring fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction.
Yeah, what about this drug war thing?
I like the idea of going hard after drugs that are ruining our community, not opening them up for more use. What is going on? Help me understand. Let's go to the phone lines. Jamie, Denver. Good morning, Jamie. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Well, good morning, Jeff and Bill. And thank you so much for bringing this subject up. I totally agree with what your guest and what, Jeff's stance on marijuana. As a baby boomer, I have seen this slow progression, well, actually fast progression of marijuana use in the community. And I have seen a lot of negative outcomes of it. I also believe, and this is, this is my belief, and that when Colorado legalized marijuana, I think it led to a lot of, I don't think it helped the state. I think it drew in a lot of deadbeats and just people who, started living off the government, maybe increased the homeless. I don't know.
It did, Jamie. And in fact, I would talk to law enforcement from Nebraska and Utah when I was really fighting this battle with Colorado Christian University. And they were like, oh, yeah, no, we love the fact you guys legalized pot. It emptied out all of our towns of the ne'er-do-wells that we had problems with. So law enforcement told me directly that they left Nebraska and Utah and moved to Colorado.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I suspected that almost immediately. And I also feel that, and I have seen cases where marijuana has, they always say, well, alcohol produces violence, which I know it does, but I've seen that happen in cases with marijuana, or at least where people become verbally abusive.
Yep.
And I also, again, I'm not a scientist, I don't know, but I really do, in my gut feeling, believe that marijuana is a gateway drug, in my opinion.
Of course, it is. And it begins people on that path of alternating their reality in order to deal with their problems, and it becomes a more and more serious problem.
Yeah,
so.
see, now, I appreciate that, Jamie, but for me, the gateway drug normally is cigarettes and alcohol. And the only reason I say that is, and again, it's anecdotal, but over the course of my lifetime, I have a really hard time finding anyone that began with marijuana. 99.99% of the people I talk to before trying marijuana all tried either cigarettes or alcohol or both first. And those are both drugs.
I don't disagree with you. I think they're part of the pathway. But what I often hear in that argument is, for instance, like alcohol is really bad. We have that. Tobacco is really bad. What about those? And I'm like, well, why? If you're admitting that commercialized drugs have serious problems in our community, why would you add a third?
Yeah, I'm just talking about the idea of the gateway. I think the gateway starts earlier. If we're talking about where the magic yellow brick road happens, I don't think it happens at marijuana, which for me is stage 3. And this is a long time thing for me, Jamie, and I'd be curious about you and maybe where Jeff is, but I used to play this game in college during parties, is we would get 3 items, and let's just say that we put 3 apples on the table, Jamie, just for the sake of discussion. 1 apple represents tobacco. 1 apple represents alcohol. One apple represents marijuana. You can only keep 2 of the 3 apples on the table. Which one do you remove and why?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a fun intellectual argument about our relationship with recreational drugs and what we have as far as permissibility inside of society.
I would still take marijuana out. I think there's evidence out there that marijuana's connection to schizophrenia is very, very serious, and and that frankly scares me a lot more. Jamie?
Yeah. What about you, Jimmy? What would you keep on the table? What one would you take off of those apples?
I would take off the marijuana. And I should also add, I know 2 cases, one of them in my own family, where they didn't smoke or drink. They started marijuana and ultimately died of heroin overdose. So that colors my perception greatly.
Jamie, I appreciate your personal perspective, and thanks for playing that intellectual game.
And for me, in that intellectual game, the one thing that makes me have pause on the idea of trading out marijuana for alcohol is over the course of my lifetime, I don't know a hell of a lot of people that said, I can't believe I got so high that this happened. But I know a lot of people that got so drunk that they lose days. And I haven't had that experience with anybody in my life for marijuana. That's the one that gives me pause. I'm not saying it's the right apple to take. Just saying that's the one that gives me pause.
Text messages, whatever happened to the money from the marijuana tax? That's because, as we pointed out at the Centennial Institute years ago, for every $1 of tax revenue you take in, you spend $4.50 dealing with the effects of it. Hence, why the state's broke, even though we were supposed to take in marijuana tax on that. And then this one I often hear, but what about adults who have the right to use marijuana, just like they want to drink alcohol or smoke tobacco? Don't they have personal freedom? In that world where somebody consumes a drug and doesn't affect anybody else, possibly, but what you end up with is we've had a massive increase of marijuana-related traffic fatalities that we have to pay for. We have a result, hospitalizations that we have to pay for, increase in healthcare costs that we have to pay for. So while I choose not to do it, what about the freedom to keep my own money and not have to pay the consequences of other people choosing to use an illicit drug like that? All right. We'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS. All right, this is Winter Wonderland, Ray Charles version, but most importantly, snowflakes, not white. They're translucent. They reflect all the light that you see. That's why they're white. Just saying.
Oh.
Yeah. We'll tell you more about cool facts about snow
So
later on, but
fun
not
to
today.
hang out with Bill. I wonder what it's like in your house. Just
I'm so annoying.
just constantly
Just so annoying.
showing up. It's awesome. Let's go to the phone lines. John in Denver. Is this John Denver? Good morning, John. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning, John. Only got about a minute.
All right, good morning. I'm an emergency room physician, and I just have comments about all the medical issues regarding, marijuana that I see in the emergency room. There's a condition called hyperemesis cannabinoid, and I see that all the time in these young people who just have this constant nausea, vomiting, and they can't stop. And I go, when was the last time you smoked marijuana? And they would say, oh, I only smoke once a week, And I go, well, you have to give it up for at least a month for it to stop. Besides the medical conditions, including lung issues, they've come up with a lot of, all the tar and everything else that associated with the marijuana smoke. It's damaging their lungs.
I think there's a lot of health consequences that are going to come.
We should spend more time with you, John. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I appreciate you calling in
Thanks
and
for the
sharing
call.
your perspective. If you missed any of the show, go to 710knus.com to download the podcast. Billy and I will be back tomorrow. You've been listening to Jeff and Bill.
This is 710 KNUS.